Yes. Oh, I've never heard that before. Welcome everybody to the experience. I have the one and the only Cynthia Sue Larson on the show. Yay! Welcome, Cynthia.
Woo! Thank you.
So
feeling the energy.
Yeah. Well, the energies have been crazy. I know that
Yes.
the Schumann resonance has been kind of wild, and then today it kind of dropped. But I want to give you an official welcome in the sense that, like, we have done very little conversation. We've done zero pretty much, and we haven't talked in at least over a year, not since the whole lockdown quarantine thing happened. So there's so much to get caught up on. And so I'm just really excited. So what have you been up to?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm still slowly making progress on a book I'm working on. It's the Mandela effect and its society. So it's really about it's the same topic I've been covering for 20 years, but the way I see it, it's the same. A lot of people don't make that connection. So I'll be really covering the history, the science, the experience of the Mandela effect. A lot of people feel like, oh, I know what it is. You know, it's just a few words being different in a movie or something, or Mandela being alive. Some people think he is, some people don't. What does it matter? So I'll be doing my best to show why it matters, how it matters, and bringing the mindsets together, because the experiencers, they're like fresh in the experience. And then the people who are scientifically minded don't tend to acknowledge these things because it falls outside of the regular Boolean Western classical logic. It's just so strange. So I like bringing that together. But this project, each book I work on takes its own energy, its own time, its own focus. So it's still working through me. It's going forward, but at its own, it raced forward and then it slowed to a stop. But I think it was with the pandemic, really. So that was fascinating. It knew what was going on before I did.
You know, it's funny. And I want to hear more about it. I had right before everything shut down, I had this really strong urge to pull my kids out of school. And it was, they were, something was going on with them. They were feeling socially like it wasn't working out for them. And so I literally, I'm like, kids, I'm going to start homeschooling you again. Let's do that. And so I yanked him out, and then literally a week later, everything shut down. I was like, oh, I guess I took my guidance too literally. They would have been out of school anyway, but I mean, it's worked out well, and they're going to end up going to a different school, but it's been like, I mean, unschooling is pretty cool for kids. It's like, I'm just doing whatever. Anyway.
That's so good that you can make the best of whatever is happening. I like to do that too. I like to look, because I've been dealing with long COVID, actually. I don't want to go into too much because I don't want that to be, tracking terms on the video and so forth. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm learning from it, of course, I'm taking everything I normally would do and then taking it as a journey and experiencing where can we grow in a positive direction with it. And surprisingly, you can. There's some amazing things to come out of it. So that's been cool. But I don't usually talk too much about it. So, but there's that. And then I just did a video that I think we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
About these top 10 tips for shifting reality. So basically dusting off an article I'd written years ago. But since that happened, this topic of shifting reality has just boomed on TikTok and elsewhere. It's, I guess millions or tens of millions of hits on these subjects.
Wow. So, you figured out how to do TikTok. Do you like TikTok?
I've only done a few TikToks, and I haven't really, I can't say I've got the hang of it. It's perfect if you just have that 60-second mindset soundbite, and then you have a fun, playful way to present it so it's authentic and true. If you're good at that, boom, but there's a learning curve. So can't say I've got.
I'll have to toy with that. If you're doing it, I'm intrigued. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, totally.
You're my inspiration.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's fun. If you tell your kids about it, they can get you going real fast. They'll be like, Mom, of course. I mean, unless they're shut out of the internet, which is hard to imagine.
Never. No, they're like, or else they're like in a corner, like, what is life becoming? It's like, this is actually life here. This thing that does not have a screen. This is your life.
Well, I have had tendencies to be a little like a Luddite. Like I still don't have a cell phone, for example, which is weird. I know. I know it's weird, right? But there are
Well, a
reasons.
landline
Yeah,
works, right? It still works.
totally. Works better sometimes, like in the
Yeah.
event of an actual emergency. That still works. Like the power's turned off, but the phone still works. Yay.
Yeah.
So
Do you have like the windy cords?
yeah, I do. I don't quite have the rotary dial. It's not that. They'll be like, since you're living in a museum.
I know,
Not,
kids, this is what the kind of phone we used to have before you were born.
you crank it up. Oh gosh. You hold one piece to your ear.
Hello?
No.
Hello?
Oh my gosh, no. but that's hysterical.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
so yeah, 10 ways of shifting your reality.
right. They're tips really, because I think what I'm noticing from the insurgence of fresh interest in the topic is that the younger people, like on TikTok, they would want to make a reality shift into Hogwarts or something. You know, that's really what they're after. And then so they're approaching it with interesting lucid dreaming techniques. But you know, they're drawing from exactly the material that I wrote about in my book, Reality Shifts. So it's been out there all this time. What's interesting is that now there's this resurgence or huge surgence, maybe it's the first surgence
Yeah.
of interest in the topic like I've never seen. But I always felt like it was something humanity needs. We need to be aware that we're living in a waking dream, that we can bring lucid dreaming skills to real life, and that we're all shifting reality all the time. I know these were bizarre things to be saying 20 years ago, but now I think we're at a point where at least the younger people acknowledge, well, it sounds cool and I wish it worked and let's try it. And so they're open. Meanwhile, in fields like medicine, we're seeing the power of the placebo effect, which is extremely related to this whole thing. And so I think that's very practical. It's very interesting. People are motivated. And in terms of can you get what you will yourself to get? Now I don't think that's a smart way to go about it. So I think, so when I bring the top 10 tips, I'm really working within the yin and the yang of it, the grace and the willpower of it, the two sides of our awareness and being that we seldom recognize. Westerners tend to think I am just my active self, and we don't acknowledge the graceful receiving, working together part of ourselves, where we don't get what we want. Quite often we don't get what we want, what we think we want at the level that we think we're thinking. See, when you start clarifying it that way, then you realize, oh, there's a lot going on here. And that's where, yeah, you know that. So
oh, but I just love hearing you talk about it. It's just it's so delicious to me. I just keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Just realized I should take a breath or let you say something.
No. I'm experiencing this reality shifting right in front of me. I'm the observer and the participant simultaneously.
Yes. And that's exactly this yin and the yang of it that I'm looking at, because I'm fascinated by that. Especially the yin, the receptive side, because we tend to think, oh, that's feminine and that's doing nothing. And the heroes should be active in our movies and blah, blah, blah. What a bias we have. And so when we don't see what we're doing, when we think the woman should be rescuing, it's like, wait a minute. I think you missed the whole point. I think what we really need to look at is how are our stories and fairy tales and myths helping us evolve with both aspects of our identity, which needs to be the listening receptive side, where you can be even listening to plants. Like I had a video recently, music of the plants, and showing that they can communicate with us in ways people might never have imagined. To animal communication, I love those videos with I Am Bunny and Stella, the talking dog, and the buttons where they can talk. So I think people's minds, yeah, they're getting blown right now. People are like, what? And so when you start noticing that your plants and your animals can and do talk to you, and they always know how you're feeling and what you're thinking. Like in Dom and Her, where the music of the plants was created, there's a room where the plants decide who can come into that room. And they do not let people in if they're angry. So even if they've let you in before, but if you're having a meltdown, it's like, Cynthia's not ready to come in the room.
I don't know about this. I don't know. I mean, I know yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this is the stuff that they don't show it. I visited Dominaire. I saw the prototype of their music of the plants back around 2000 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I've been following this story, if you will, for a long time, but I haven't lived on the site. I think you'd have to actually live there to be trusted enough for them to show you, okay, we'll show you the room where the plants can move themselves around on these little rolling platforms. They
Oh
can
my
open them,
gosh.
they can lock it, unlock the door, they can change the lighting and the water, they can water themselves, open and close windows, that kind of stuff. They have yeah.
That's
And so
incredible.
when you give plants that kind of yang where they can be that active and lock you out and say, we've got boundaries and you're out, you're angry, sorry, that's amazing. And I think that's what humans need to start recognizing, is that when we talk to our dog and the dog gets mad and walks away and basically says shut up, even though the shut up buttons aren't on the screen, that's I am Bunny. The Bunny, the dog, is basically she's just saying, settle now. And settle sound now really means shut up. But she's getting creative with her word ability, and that's what she means, because she walks away, turns her back, like that's it.
Yeah, I'm just done. Oh my gosh, that I mean I know about Baxter's work, right? With what is the Secret Life of Plants? Is that what it
Yeah, his work was first featured there. That's how I first heard about it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I had no idea that it's evolved to the point where the plants are living like semi-autonomously. I guess it sounds like they're living with a higher level of involvement, which is so cool, because I recently had a client. He's a young man, and he was talking about the dichotomy within himself, because he's human, and that sort of that notion of being superior to other things on the planet and having to navigate like his own animal self within. And I was like, oop, losing my earpiece. Um, and I was like, I think you have an old school way of looking at plants and animals, because they absolutely have super complex relationships and dynamics with each other. I mean, all the stuff that's coming out about the biochemicals that trees and the what happens in the root systems of forests, and um, the communication that goes on there is just incredible. And just the other day, we had watered our aloe plant, and I was like, I think our aloe plant is really thirsty, and we watered it, and it just like it became so erect and happy and like, oh. And I was like, damn, you're really you communicated so well, our little, I was so proud of it for communicating with me. And it's so cool. Wow. Keep going.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is that there's a receptivity that's important, and there's a power of listening that matters. And otherwise, very easy for me to be like your friend and just plow right through people's their boundaries, or the plant world's boundaries, or an animal's boundaries, and not even notice we're doing it. And I know we have this whole super sensitivity now. So I'm not saying that we need to this gets very political real fast. I didn't mean it to go there. What I'm really trying to say is, if we open ourselves to the awareness that we're already immersed in nature, we're part of the natural world, and there's a part of us that moves in grace, in coordination with everything. So it's okay to make mistakes. We do that. That's how we learn. There's no way to go through life without making mistakes, because sometimes people who are vegetarians say, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have been eating animals. And they are often the ones that don't want to know that plants can sing and collaborate and create music with a musician. They don't want to hear that. Then it's like, what am I going to eat?
Yeah, they can't eat anything.
But that's missing the point, because what really it comes back to is just conscious living, recognizing that you'll be eating some animals, some plants, depending on what works for you as a person. I'm not telling people what to do. Each
No.
person has their own dietary needs,
Yeah.
obviously. So
Well, yeah,
yeah.
I think that's what I hear is it's a deepening into what I like in my work, I would call our inner technology, our ability to perceive things on deeper levels. So it's like just like the basic inner yeses and nos, like is, there, I believe part of the human experience is the choice to come and have this experience on this planet. and grapple with it. And it doesn't always mean that it's going to be easy. That's not really why we came. We came here to have this earthly experience. And so what can we do though with the beautiful technology that we reside within that can allow us to know, like, okay, is this a good match for my body? Like, is this food resonant with my energy field? Is my body wanting this? Body, do you want this? Or, plant or animal that I'm about to eat, like, to be mindful enough to go, okay, we're going to do this experience together. You're going to nourish me and I'm going to be appreciative of it. That's my ideal thing. I wish I was always that mindful when I'm eating, but it's really a goal of mine for sure.
Absolutely. And it's a good thing to remember that a lot of our First Nations, Indigenous peoples already, that was their original culture, to maintain eco harmony and to be just really living in a regenerative, sustainable way on the planet so that there's more diversity biologically and in their environments. I'm not saying that they're perfect. I think if you're human on this planet, there have been issues. So I'm not glorifying any one particular culture. I'm just saying we do have models for how to do this part of it. And that's out there, which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's a very good thing.
Yeah.
So,
and it's fun. I mean, it's fun when
it's so fun.
It's so much more fun than thinking that everything other than human is, as dumb as a doornail,
And I've always known that was not right. I mean, since I was a small child, I could feel there's consciousness in everything. Even to me, inanimate or objects, I can feel.
Even the doornail. I'm like, great, someone's going to get pissed at me about the doornail.
Oh gosh. Well, it's more about just being reverent and being respectful as much as you can from wherever you're at. Yeah. And then you're good. So if you need food, you need to eat, unless you're a plant and you can photosynthesize, but most of us aren't there yet. So we're working on
it. I know, you got to get a little bit more chlorophyll in here. That's so cool. Funny. So do you want to go? Do you want? Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about receptivity too. Receptivity is one of those things that I think is misunderstood. I recently put a post on my Facebook that was just kind of surveying what people thought about the giving and receiving, and if one was basically better than the other. And I believe balance is ideal. I was actually surprised to find it how many people were like, receiving is bad, giving is the only way to go. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. We just mentioned this sort of a model with like children's movies, and it's like whoever does the active rescuing is good. Whoever gets rescued, that's weak. That's bad. Like, wait a minute. And I mean, rescuing is, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot there. Let's not go into the wholeness of it. But the key point is, like you said, it's receptivity. This is actually tied in with that first tip in reality shifting. What's the first thing to do is to pay attention, but you can't properly pay attention if you have huge blinders on. And most of us do. Most of us don't see very much at all. We have a very narrow bandwidth. We've talked about that before, but I think the key now is recognizing if we've narrowed things down so much, what in terms of reality shifts have we been missing? What kinds of amazing synchronicities have been occurring? That does qualify because it's demonstrating that higher order of connected awareness, of receptivity, where things come to you. What is coming to you? We tend to, in our Western culture, claim like, I did this, it's my idea. We want to own that idea. But what if the idea was already there? Like Carl Jung talks about these archetypal energies, which does seem like more to what's true in the universe.
Right. Like we're receiving it when we get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you're receiving things, that's kind of the beginning of it all. You sort of notice, like, is this my idea? We don't even question much of this. And most of us don't get training in which energetic being gave me this idea. And like some of us that do notice, oh, that was my angel, or that's my grandma, or that's my dead pet, our family's pet dog, or it's the plant in the backyard. I can do a lot of that stuff. But if you don't even get used to that sort of thing, you don't even know to look at that. And then it's just some idea, which is fine.
Right.
But just to start noticing, like, I got this idea, maybe that was a shift, maybe
Right.
something happened.
Well, I think there's that shift in awareness that a lot of people who are still really concretized in the orthodoxy of like, and of course this could offend people, it's not meant to, but of the scientific method in that, but everything that you're observing is all contained within the apparatus of yourself, and not that you're a transmitter and a receiver of energy and vibration and frequency, because if it's all happening within here, then how are you being influenced in any way? Right.
Yeah, what it looks like to me, and I keep looking to see, where can I back this up? Where's the research? Where's the proof? Where's someone else claiming this? And I can't really find it yet, but to me, it's very obvious. Like, there are levels of our awareness that are operating, and we tend to identify with the embodied levels, like we'll pick everything up that's in our body, from the crown chakra to the third eye to our throat. We'll give voice to things, to our heart. We feel how we are connected, our solar plexus, and then down to the root chakra. But we don't consciously tend to go to some of the higher levels. Although some of us who are doing this reality shifting, the kids that want to do that lucid dreaming, and they try these different methods, like the cup method, the starfish method, whatever. It's not really about the methods in my way of thinking. It's more about the whole business of paying attention in the first place. What level of awareness? And I guess you can sort of follow these tricks and tools and jump into an astral projection of yourself, but you might still not know who you are. So I think what's the value then of traveling when you don't even know who you are? And I think it's more important to start noticing and meditating to discover what level of consciousness are you working with at any given moment. And it's almost like there are levels of ourselves that are in cahoots at those higher levels with everyone else. And I way before it all goes
totally.
Because way before it hits we are all one, you're much more dealing with like the Jungian archetype levels, and you're still going up and still going up. The higher up I go, then I start noticing, like, oh, these are beings that bring you directly to like pure goodness, pure God, pure divine source. And those would be like archangels. But along the way, there's so much. And the only thing I can see are just like the pictures of angels. But funnily enough, this is being tracked now by neuroscientists who are looking at the way there are these quantum fields, quantum consciousness fields, and maybe we never can be constrained just to our neurons or our DNA or anything physical like that. Even I know that there's that big theory about microtubules, but I think that's still too mired in the physicality, and it doesn't address.
I don't know about this microtubule thing.
Oh, really?
No.
Gosh. No. Oh my gosh. Well, let's start with there's a famous physicist, Dr. Penrose, and he collaborated with basically a scientist who had been practicing the art of putting people to sleep before surgery. So anesthesia is a mysterious phenomenon, because a person is unconscious, but they're still sort of there. And so the collaboration began from putting these ideas together with Penrose's ideas of quantum physics, and an idea that, when you look at quantum physics, you're starting to see that consciousness is always present, seemingly, and the observer matters, things like that, that there's this entanglement going on. Obviously, it might be possible that we're not in our brains. So that's the idea of the microtubule, is sort of a go-to for the mechanism, because we love mechanisms. Like how can we explain
of non-locality
of all the quantum? They're looking for a mechanism for the quantum effects that humans experience. But I don't know that we need a mechanism like a microtubule. I think that's unnecessarily complicating it, although people love these things. They just love it. They just want to lock onto that. Like, okay, now we got our microtubule. Here's the quantum connection. It's right there. And so we've got these little tubules so they can act in a quantum fashion. I think it's the
how.
nice,
it's like trying to make sense of the how of it. Like how is this going to happen? But I know for me, like when I'm changing my reality, I have to stay completely away from the how in order for it to really drop in the way that it's meant to drop in. And when I think in terms of quantum experience, it's so instantaneous that thinking of any sort of like gadgetry or mechanism that happens is to completely take myself out of the experience of it. And what if we are the technology? Like what if consciousness is the technology and that is the mechanism?
To me, that makes more sense. But that's
Yeah,
my
me
own
too.
experience.
Me
But there
too.
are people, or they might love that idea of them. So whatever works for you. But going back to paying attention, so it's just like looking around, being aware of these reality shifts, acknowledging them when they happen, rather than dismissing them. But in order to acknowledge them, we can't be shutting them out. And often we usually shut them out because we've been trained, like, oh, that's just you just forgot something. It's like, but everyone else remembers it that way too. I think it's a Mandela effect. No, we've been through this before. We've debunked the Mandela effect. Like, really? Okay. So that narrowing is going to limit one's ability to experience reality shifts. So paying attention to your own, even if they seem tiny, like, oh, it's a small thing. I was looking for something. It wasn't where I looked, and then it came back, and it was just a key. It's nothing big. That's a big deal because you need the key,
I totally agree. I mean, it's like when in consciousness, because, I work with people in their consciousness, there's an awareness of things sort of in the rote, what we're familiar with. And then there's a deeper awareness that is subtler because we're not used to looking at it, that it can sometimes like, oh, it's right in front of me and I didn't even notice. I mean, that happens to me with dreams sometimes, like, oh, I'm not remembering my dream. And then some awareness will be triggered and I'll remember an entire dream, and patterns of thoughts are sometimes that way for me too. And I would imagine that that's how it is for people too. Like the more you give yourself permission to be aware of, the more aware of things you enable yourself to become.
A lot of that, you're right. And I love the way you brought those examples up. And I think a lot of people feel scared. This gets into people's safety because their fight or flight can get activated pretty rapidly when they start noticing, like, oh my gosh, if that can move, then my whole house might not be here. My family might be different. People actually panic about these things. Like, if I jump to a different reality, what happened to my family? And so again, this is fixating almost on the wrong thing. But you
Yeah.
can't tell people that, because if they are panicking about that, then maybe reality shifting is not for them right now until
Right.
they feel safe. Because if you don't feel safe, this is not going to be a fun experience to love the unknown. It's fun if you feel safe. It's not fun when you don't, obviously.
Right. I think stabilizing the self is probably primary. And then, yeah, it's sort of
Yes.
like hierarchy of needs must be met before sort of the adventure of
Right.
really playing in reality can happen. It's almost a luxury, I guess.
That's typically true. What's funny is when I'm in emergency situations, that's when I go super psychokinetic, super psychic. That's when reality warps like crazy around me.
I
And it's like, if you
agree.
want, it's like spectacularly bizarre stuff happens. It's almost like I'm rippling through all the levels of reality, and there's some higher level of myself. Like, okay, she needs to know everything now. Okay, she knows everything now. She needs to affect everything that she's doing it. I'm like, what the? You got to
Yeah,
be
or it's
kidding
like
me.
when people say that like they're in the middle of a traumatic accident or something and everything slows down and
Yes.
every moment is perceived and perceivable. And what I said about the luxury of having your needs met, I don't actually agree with that, because I think if you're really taught that from a very early age, how to work with a much broader awareness,
Yes.
you're going to use it as a tool. It's much more beneficial to life
Right.
on all levels.
Absolutely.
Sense of self, sense of security, and sense of security within the self as opposed to outside of the self. I think that is that sort of adjustment that needs to be made, because if you realize that reality is flexible, that could create almost like a sense that an earthquake could come at any minute, like nothing is permanent feeling. But if you feel secure within the self,
Right.
right? Like if you have that sense of stability within, then my belief is that you're much more able to handle the fluctuations that are happening around you.
And And what often happens is when people are about to be in oncoming vehicular crashes, something, it's a dark secret that a lot of people don't tell each other apparently, but they will tell me when I give a talk. And like I'll get swarmed by people that say that happened to me. I've never told anyone. I was in an oncoming car accident, like an 18-wheeler. We're in a tunnel. It's too narrow. There's nowhere to go. I can't back up. I can't turn around. I should have crashed. It's like I close my eyes, and then the next thing I know, we're on the other side of each other. This happens a lot, like a lot. Way more
Whoa.
than like the slowing down thing. You'll have people that say we've debunked that. Okay, fine. Let them say they've debunked that. But I give you this exhibit B. It's like, this is pretty badass. This is like, okay, so we see you slowing down and you're saying that's a trick of the mind. Fine. Well, what do you call it when literally there's nowhere to go? There's no way to avoid an accident, but this has happened, and it happens a lot. And I'm sure that people who are on-site responders have heard people say it, like, I don't know why I'm alive. I should be dead. It's like we passed each other and then I crashed into the antenna, but don't you get it? I didn't hit the truck or
Right.
whatever. Like, I'm
I
alive.
feel like that's happened to me, and I can't remember. I bet that's happened to all of us at various times. I swear that's happened in some instance where I was sure I was going to run into something, and then I closed my eyes and I didn't. And I feel like it was recent. I don't remember, but it's so cool. Are you going to have that in the book?
Yeah, I've talked about some of these in like quantum jumps. I've talked about some similar experiences, and I've shared them a little bit in reality shifts. I'll be bringing it up again in Mandela effect, but of course that's more the group experience. So then, unless you're on an airplane that doesn't crash or something, and everyone saw that, like, oh my gosh, we survived. It's hard to convey what it feels like to be facing imminent destruction, and then the next thing everything's fine. But it is a normal experience. It does mesh into these quantum phenomena, which is like quantum tunneling, where a physical object can go right through a barrier and then be on the other side of it. So we know that happens with quantum particles. They have this ability to go into a wave state, kind of like drifting, like meditation, and then be firm and measurable again on the other side of a barrier. We can do that too. And if you don't think too much about it, like, I can't hit, I don't want to, that's not acceptable. Wave state, and then boop, on the other side. Obviously, to me, that looks like the best Occam's razor, simplest explanation for what's going on, as far out as it seems. Because when you've eliminated all the other possibilities, what the remaining answer, no matter how weird it may seem, it's got to be the truth. And that looks currently to me like, there it is. That's what's happening.
It makes sense to me. So you know what this brings up for me is I was just asked to write a chapter in a book, and I had to just sort of whip it out in like 3 days. And I did it, and I feel really appreciative. And so that's really fun. But what I was talking about in the chapter is that feeling that happens around death. Have you seen or been around dead people or people who are dying?
Yes.
I have too. And so and I've been around people who have died in accidents, and I've been around, it's really just around people who have recently deceased, not who have been gone like hundreds of years.
Right.
There's like a vacuum or something. There's like this quietness, this palpable silence or that happens. You know what I mean? It's an experience. There's something that you can really feel in that moment.
Absolutely. But sometimes there's like, they're very sacred, special moments. And even like, I was with one person who was like the closest family member in my family. Right after my grandmother died, I was right there. And then I was with a stranger right after she died. Don't know her at all. In both occasions, all the events leading up to me being with them were orchestrated, guided, choreographed to a remarkable degree. And then when I was with them, I had extraordinary experiences as well, very deeply meaningful and just profound. So it was not just, so I didn't just get the vacuum thing, but I also feel like they're fine, they're both doing okay. And they had some interests in what my grandmother didn't really feel like I needed to do anything. Oh, never mind. It's a long story. They're both long stories. It's been so interesting. It's like, so
it is. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even know, just thinking about it in this way, where to it's a reality shifting for sure, but I think there's something in it that is innately uh, reverence creating. And I can't explain it, but there's just a feeling. It's a palpable feeling that happens, and it's like, whoa. And it's like it's a
Yes.
time of introspection. It's a time of silence and reverence and it's, I mean, I'm just talking about it because I think it's such a cool thing to think about, and I've had that experience so much. And I was with my father when he died. I wasn't actually in the room, but I was dreaming, and he allowed me in the dream to let his soul energy leave the building. Like I opened the door to his house in the dream state and watched his spirit leave the house. Um, just I've been lucky enough to be around a lot of dead people, and that must sound really strange.
Not at all. No.
I worked in a morgue for a summer internship, and was that's where I started to realize that I was a highly sensitive person, because I was
Yes.
more tapped into like what was going on energetically around me, and then like totally freaking out that I couldn't protect this body that was about to be like autopsies are so intense. And I just remember being like energetically like, whoa, there's a lot happening here. And I for a while, I thought I might do crime scene investigation. Like I thought maybe I'd do that. But then I was like, there's no way in hell I'll be able to be sane and do this and be happy, or too dark, too intense, too
Yeah.
physical. I need more spiritual, more consciousness.
For, for me, both of those dead experiences, I was already, before they happened, like days, weeks, hours beforehand, or minutes, depending on what it was, I was getting these downloads, like information, and making connections and getting everything all organized when I didn't know what I was doing. Like with the lady I didn't know, I went to a park I never go to, parked in a place I've never been, noticed very carefully, like, yes, I see there's a police station here. Interesting. It's open. Okay, cool. And then I hear people shouting, like, why are they shouting in a park? I came to read my book. So I just go to this where I feel guided to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're coming here. But then I see she's a dead woman, death grip in her hands. She's going into, rigor mortis, holding the leash of her dog. And so I realized I could feel her. That was the sacred moment. I felt like, oh, that's why I'm here. Okay, I'll take care of I'm promising her I'll take care of your dog for you. I will see this through. I don't know how, and I don't know why I'm saying this, but yes, I see. I got it. I got you. And I know they're coming for you. It's because people are yelling. They're yelling at paramedics. Paramedics arrive all bossy and pushy and get out of the area with that dog. And like, okay, but I think I know who she is and where she lives because it's on the dog tag. Give me that, But then the whole thing made sense. They're just being themselves.
Right,
They're
right.
in,
They're just, yeah, they're in it. Yeah. But
but it's
how
okay.
incredible.
I know. And then there's a whole follow through with the dog, and I made sure it's safe, even though I can't do that, even though I'm not family, it doesn't matter. When you're connected at that level, everything opens and everything's fine. So the dog
Totally.
made it to a beautiful home. She's fine.
Aw.
Yeah,
Aw.
the police office that was closed on that Sunday, they were open. I knew they were open. I knew where to tell. The whole thing was perfect. It's like so amazing.
The
And
guidance
that's
that comes through is freaking incredible. I mean, it's the
yeah,
listening. It's the listening that we
that's
get
it.
to hone, I mean, even today, and I tease myself every day. I'm like, I'm listening so well, and I'm always letting myself be guided, but there's still that part of me that like the intellect is like, I'm not going to need that. Like, I'm getting the guidance. Don't forget this. And then my intellect is like, I'm good. And then sure enough, forgot it.
Exactly.
You chose not to listen. Okay. I mean,
But
it's a
but
constant
that
learning.
but this is the second top tip, and it's really appreciating. So you don't beat yourself up. You want to
Right.
get on the good side of that. So it's like, okay, so I listen. I know that I should be listening because I do sometimes. Right, you do. And I do the best I can, and I'm pretty good at it sometimes. Right. So I'll be working on expanding that. And this is
I
so
love it.
important because these sensory abilities that we're expanding, they're already there, but they're dormant. They've been like kind of switched off, toggled off. You were very fortunate to be in the morgue like you were, because then in that quiet, it's like so quiet. And then you can start picking up. It's like you can become a super taster when you
Mm-hmm.
cleanse your palate. You've cleansed
Mm-hmm.
your palate, and now you're hearing things and seeing things and knowing things like, whoa, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
And it's powerful.
Yeah. I agree. That's what my book is about, is those latent gifts within us, and activating them, how to use them in our lives. That has to be done, Cynthia, by August.
Yay. So then you go yay because you're appreciating it. Like, I can do this. It's like,
I
how is
so
this
can
going to
do it.
happen?
So right. It's all lined up. It's already coming. Like it's flowing out of me like crazy. It just took a while. Oh yeah, yeah. But what I want to say about noticing is a benefit is, like, even if you decide not to listen, like I was like, I'm not listening to that.
Mhm.
I still heard it. And was like, I am making the choice not to listen. I don't know how many times when I was dating, don't go out with this guy. I've heard that and I'm going to go anyway. So we do that.
Yeah.
We hear it and we don't listen, and that's okay. There's no shame in that too. That's part of the experimentation of what it is to be human too. And just be mindful though, when you get the awareness of the guidance that is always correct, just, it's our choice to listen. So I know when I'm getting it. And even if it's like if it's a really big thing, like, it's a totally sunny day, like bring an umbrella. All right, I'll bring an umbrella or whatever, or something, I don't know, something bigger than that. That's like, I don't know, bring a safety kit or whatever they call it, like, bring
Yeah.
some band-aids or something. Yes, an emergency kit, like
Yeah.
something that has like totally like out of the blue. Something that's easy to see is like, oh, I should definitely listen to that. But something like mundane is probably the harder for me to honor. I'm getting there.
Good. Yeah. The weird stuff stands out. And then it's
Yeah,
like,
the weird
why?
stuff stands out.
Like, what is that? But if
Yeah.
it's more if it's more something you expect or something that seems typical, it's easier to overlook it usually for
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
totally.
So really appreciate when you catch those things that seem mundane, then you catch them anyway. Like, okay, I'll listen. What is this? And I'll look. You can ask questions. You can go a little deeper, but it's really about appreciating, isn't it? I mean, that's the key, because once you're done kicking yourself for the mistake, and then you can move on. It's like, okay, we're learning from that. That is how we learn. We all learn that way. And we don't know what we're doing unless something tells us. And we have to hear it. And it takes a while to hear it. So be kind to yourself in the process. And it's good.
I agree. Amen.
Yeah, those are top two tips of shifting reality right there. So it's really getting in that receptive mode and then appreciating what you've got. The third one is like how to deal with that rational analytical side, because we all have it. We talked about the microtubules, which you'd never heard of, and like, what is that? And that's like it's Stuart Hameroff and David and Dr. Penrose, their model. If that does it for you, great. From you and me, not so much. So
Yeah.
for you and I think the kind of things that I like are, I look for the studies that indicate like, wow, this is the way I would hope that we could prove that nature works. This is more, the microtubules to me is sort of like, where are we really going with that? It doesn't seem like it gets us that much farther, in my opinion. So I'm looking more for evidence, for example, like we're starting to see that there is such a thing as subjective reality, where you can have two observational devices at the same place and same time with two different observations, and they're both accurate measurements. They're both true, but they're both different. So what the heck? But I love that, because that's what we're starting. That ties in perfectly with what we know about reality shifting, about the adjacent reality that's right there. And then you can relax, kind of just get in that flow state, get in that groove, that theta daydream state. And when you're kind of drifting between realities without thinking too much, you can get there. So the importance of the studies then becomes trusting your intuitive side. So it's like trusting, like, this is going to be okay. So go to whatever scientific studies work for whatever your fear levels are, whatever your boundary issues are, where you feel like I need safety. I don't know what does it for each person. Each person's different. So I like things like philosophy, like the book Axiogenesis by Nicholas Rescher, basically just showing that even if you don't believe in God, and even if you're an atheist, it doesn't matter, because ultimate goodness always creates reality. And that's just the way it is. And that's a philosopher talking. And if you do believe in God, well, it fits perfectly. It's like, oh, this makes sense. So whichever framework you're coming from, it starts recognizing that the universe itself is conscious, it's sentient, it's exploring all these avenues, and it always chooses the one that works out the best. It may not seem like it when you're at a certain level, but you'll start seeing and observing it to be true at others. So that's what does it for me. Really great thinkers like that. That really resonates, and I feel like that makes sense.
I agree. And then the people who bring that together and synthesize it, like you.
Right.
I just watch you.
Okay.
Sum it up for
Yay.
me, Cynthia Sue. I mean, I think there's something really important about that, because I don't spend a lot of time looking at research papers and reading philosophers. I'm working a lot with what I'm finding within, and then
Right.
what happens with my clients,
Right.
And I think my favorite are personal accounts, when people are just talking about their own experience. That to me is the most juicy.
Yeah. I love how you even hear it with dead people. I'm like, that is so cool. There was a TV show about that. I don't know if you saw that. I keep thinking, what's the name of it? I can't remember. I'll have to, oh my
What
gosh.
was it about?
It was about this young woman, and she worked in a morgue, and but what happened is, it's like these dead people would like say, save me. And then she's like, somehow she could go back and play with realities
Oh,
and
really?
adjust things. Really?
Dang, that would be quite a superpower.
I
But
know.
God,
I
that would
don't think
be pretty intense too.
it was super intense. So the beginning of each episode, things are all quiet. There's some dead person, and then they just sort of sit up like, save me. And she's like, oh gosh, here we go.
Oh my gosh. Whoa. They're like, do you mind? I think that's how a lot of mediums feel before they really get like honed in
Right.
on their skill set. Like,
Yeah, they do.
dead people are like, hello. And they're like, could you make an appointment?
I know. I know. I try to have boundaries with that because I've got mediumship abilities, but one of them broke through. A dead person broke through the day before I was going to be I was trying to get everything ready for this big event for International Mandela Effect Conference. And it's my friend's dead grandmother coming to me. And I'm like, well, this is all exciting and all, but I'm kind of busy. But she was very insistent, like super insistent, and very charismatic and really kind of intelligent. I said, we've never seen a picture. I've never seen a picture of you. You said you can show me a picture of you with that ridiculously common last name of Hall in Seattle in that year. Like, that's a needle in a haystack, lady. But okay, I'll bite. Let's go. Let's do it. Okay, but it gets better though. So like I do this whole crazy thing, and I'm thinking, like I'm telling you, you'll have your book by August, no problem, because you get receptive, right? It'll happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I'll get everything organized for tomorrow, no problem. I'll just go deflect over and do some genealogy research right now. And come to find out, I did find the photos. I found that this grandmother was in the yearbook in tons of photos. She was like super active in plays, and I found her exact yearbook, and I was like, what? So I phoned my friend, and the line's busy. Finally, I get through, and I'm telling her about it. And for very personal reasons that I'm not going to divulge, that was the one day that was most important for that grandmother to join a family conversation, to basically say, I'm here for all of you. And I couldn't even believe it. It was like, whoa. And everything worked out fine. I made my deadlines, but sometimes,
that's why she was so insistent,
yeah,
right?
very insistent, like, please. And I'm like, well, what do you have? Like a photo, like a photo, more than one. Oh man. Okay. And I'm not greedy. It's just like, okay, you can take me right to it. That matters, because otherwise we could spend weeks looking for you with that name in that city at that time. Forget it, but okay, let's go.
How cool. What a cool story. I love that.
But I think you're right. I didn't want to detract from what you were saying. A lot of mediums, you're right, they do start off and they feel like, I've heard from them where they're panicking, like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Why did they give me this horrible, ugly vision? It's very upsetting. It's like a nightmare. What do I do with that? Can I prevent it? Did it already happen? What's going on? So that's stressful.
Yeah. I think too, if you don't have your perception of or a solid belief system of what your understanding of life and death is, and just something that contextually makes sense to you, it can feel
Right.
very off-putting and scary.
Right. Not for you because you worked in a morgue, but for most people, yes. you
Well,
already,
I've had to deal with my own shit. I had to deal with my own shit, you know, the dark stuff, and like what does it mean to me? How do I deal with it? How do I manage it? Because I'm not naturally that great of a medium, but I've had mediumship training, and I was definitely blocking myself because I didn't want to look at shadow of myself and others. And so when I finally was ready to do that, it was a lot easier. And it's just, you know, stuff is
Yeah, it's
stuff.
feeling safe. It's feeling
Yeah,
safe.
feeling safe. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what is the resource that we can draw upon within us to feel safe?
And that can be a process. It can happen instantly, or it can take time, or it might never happen the way you're hoping it would. So
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
a journey.
I know plenty of people who could give no shits about any of this. So, but I mean, there are people who are just so oriented the way that we are and think all of this stuff is just magical and cool and fascinating and amazing. And then there are people who are like, the thought of this just really just causes me to stare blankly.
But this gets into the next point that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, how
You're going
perfect.
you're like totally in it. So this is, I know, isn't that amazing? It's like looking at our assumptions, because we have certain assumptions. And it's like when we're babies, we're in a playpen. And so you assume the world's a safe place. One day you're let out of the playpen, and then your mom and dad yell at you because you've stuck a fork in the light socket or whatever. What's
you
wrong
have
with
those
that?
big bumps on your forehead from clunking into everything.
Yeah. Like you did some crazy thing, like kids do that, and then suddenly like world is not a safe place, and your parents are yelling at you, and it's kind of like the whole world feels like it's falling apart. It's like that's not pleasant. So it's really important that what the thing I'm trying to get to here is, after you've reviewed scientific studies and you're listening and you're appreciating, the next thing you want to do is really look at your own assumptions, your own beliefs. And we usually we hold fast to those because we want to stay safe. It's all about that. So we hold whatever our beliefs are, that this is the way it is, but nothing ever stays the same. So everything's always moving, and whatever we think it is probably isn't anymore anyway. It's with the exception of like the universal truths, everything else is in flux all the time. And that's hard. That's really, it's incredible. And even saying it sounds so simple, but it also sounds like it's going to the heart of reality itself. It's like, it's like the nothingness that everything comes from. It's right there. It's in the heart of that. And I know what I'm talking about. So it's very deep. It's
I
like,
love it.
Yeah.
It is the coolest stuff. And I can't even believe that we've already gone an hour. That just felt
Oh
like
my
2
gosh.
seconds. And if I didn't have a client that I needed to see, we could just go through all 10. But would you be willing to do a part 2 so we could get at least all of the 10
I would
reality
love to.
shows?
Absolutely. We'll
Okay,
schedule it.
cool.
Let's do it. Yeah.
We're gonna have to
I'll
do
be
it.
back.
So I'm gonna just stop the recording. But thank
Okay.
you so much for this time, Cynthia. It's been an absolute delight, and I can't wait for you to be here for part 2.
Me too. Looking forward to it already.
Do you want
Thank
to
you.
share anything with anyone before we stop the recording?
Yeah, we're not leaving it incomplete. You're working with reality right now. Just always ask my favorite question: how good can it get? You'll be guided directly there. No problem. How good can it get?
Yeah, and check Cynthia out at realityshifters.com, right? That's
Thank you. Yeah, I
yeah.
forgot to mention that. Thank
And
you.
I'll put that in the description box. And she's got, how many books do you got now?
Well, I've contributed to several with chapters, like, but of my own. If you count the ebook, then there's like 6 altogether, and then if you count the meditation CD, that's a 7th being.
So
They all have
there's
personalities and vibes.
there's no shortage of stuff. Like if you need more Cynthia Sue Larson, she's out there. And she's also been interviewed by Regina Meredith on Gaia. So check those out. Those are great interviews.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. And so
Thank you so much, Nora.
you're welcome. I'm sorry we have to cut it short, but just stay tuned. It's just going to keep people hungry for more of your reality shifting techniques.
And they can put questions here so we can bring those in next time too, if they want.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you have any questions that you want to ask Cynthia Sue, do it. I dare you. All right. Until next time, everyone. Mwah. See you later.
Yeah. Bye.
Where's that recording button? Oh, there it is.